Well, let's start with a broad cultural context. I don't need to say that the pandemic and the divisiveness of politics have driven people into bunkers and tribes. It's intensified a tendency to isolate from people of different cultures, backgrounds, and faiths. People seem more suspicious of others than ever. And this is happening at a time when workplaces are becoming even more diverse. At the same time, there's cause for optimism. COVID has moved some very diverse people to collaborate in amazing acts of selflessness and kindness. People across a broad spectrum of beliefs and backgrounds who'd never worked together before joined in common cause to make and distribute things like masks and ventilators and vaccines. They worked day and night to improve logistics and give moral support. One very diverse group that's doing this is called COVID Now. Google it, it's fascinating. Each week, they gather to share reports of collaboration and selflessness. This is heroism. This is civility. It's encouraging and it's unifying. My point is this: workplaces bring diverse people together in common cause. This is where some real relationship building can take place among diverse people. Now, increasingly, there's a focus on religious diversity. Religious diversity is in the spotlight. More and more companies are wrestling with religious diversity at work. Company leaders are beginning to realize that for many of their employees, it's their faith, more than any other factor, that defines their core identity. And yet, at many companies, religion and belief are considered inappropriate topics for conversation. People feel constrained from connecting their faith to their work. They worry that if they told others about what forms the core of their identity, they'd be criticized and rejected, that they'd be labeled as narrow-minded or superstitious or intolerant or something worse. They feel they can't be themselves. The message between the lines seems to be that their faith is something to be ashamed of. Sometimes people of faith and atheists feel like they can only relate deeply with those who are like them. And then there's the fact that insensitive expression of faith can offend people who don't share those beliefs. So these are some of the problems that sort of are the background. That's the backdrop of what we'll be talking about today. Also, I just say there's a deep yearning. There's a yearning today for authenticity, sincerity, deeper connections, mutual trust. There's lots of discussion in the human resource profession about the need to engage the entire person at work. We hear about psychological safety, about the need to humbly listen to one another, about overcoming biases, conscious and unconscious biases that keep us from building stronger relationships with each other. All these topics are closely related to people's faith and beliefs. Yet many business leaders have no idea how to approach the topic of faith in the workplace. They wonder, what are the best practices? What are the pitfalls? What can and should be done? And then there are misunderstandings about the legal requirements. When does religious expression cross the line and create an oppressive environment? When do restrictions on religious expression violate people's religious freedom rights? These are legitimate concerns and questions. But we have found in the Religious Freedom in Business Foundation, sort of being a fulcrum or a place where we receive information from various companies, we've found that the worry is largely unwarranted. These concerns can be readily addressed. What's holding companies back is not these issues, but a lack of knowledge and a lack of sound coaching. So I have 9 coaching points for you today. You know, they say you should keep just to 3 points for any talk, but I'm going to transgress that now. First of all, chronologically, I'd say, is from the outset, as you begin any what-if management discussion about religious expression, make it clear that this would be part of a larger emphasis on valuing all individuals for who they are. The big idea is that the right to be yourself at work extends to all people of all faiths and beliefs and to atheists. A corollary to this principle is that faith-oriented communication should always be voluntary. It's up to the individual. Now, this sounds simple, but it's hugely important to set the stage right at the beginning. This is about freeing everybody to be transparent and authentic. Point number 2, consider how freedom of religion and belief dovetails with your business priorities. We have many examples of this, but I'll mention 2. PayPal issued a statement when it launched its interfaith employee resource group that they call Believe. The statement includes this, quote, "All employees have the right to bring their whole self to work. Faith and worldviews are core to who we are, our values and beliefs, and to how we conduct business." Now let that sink in for a minute here. Faith and belief of our employees is core to how we conduct our business. There are a lot of people who think faith and belief is something you do in your own time, maybe on Sundays in your house of worship or in a mosque someplace, but boy, you don't bring that into the workplace. PayPal gets it. They understand that people's faith is something they bring with them as part of their identity into work. Their statement goes on, quote, "The mission of Believe is to foster an inclusive work culture and to promote holistic well-being by providing a forum to openly exercise and celebrate all faiths and worldviews while working. Believe exists to create awareness and understanding of faith, hope, love, empathy, and respect for one another and service toward our customers, communities, and coworkers." Boy, I love this. PayPal gets it. They are saying that the workplace is a place where you exercise your religion. Texas Instruments is another example. They're close to my heart because I spent 37 years there as a lawyer. But their faith-oriented or diversity initiatives have the exact same purposes as all of their diversity groups, and they include these. And it's interesting to reflect on these in context of a religious group: to promote a collaborative and respectful culture, to recruit and cultivate talent, to stimulate innovation and engagement, and to give back to their communities. Just listen to that. The whole idea of these people of faith, the emphasis on freedom of religious expression impacts innovation, it impacts engagement, and it helps recruit. These very business types of concepts right into mainstream. So my point is this: the focus on religious diversity should be seen as part of the company's core business strategy. This isn't about an isolated hobby horse project. It's not about stocking the freezer with chocolate ice cream because a lot of employees like chocolate. This is at the core of your company's mission, and it shows your company's passion for its most valuable asset, its people. This is not just about what's happening in our companies. In focusing on religious diversity, we're building a culture of civility that has legs. Our companies are producing cultural byproducts that impact the world outside their workplaces. People are learning how to connect more respectfully and more civilly as they work side by side. And in a world racked by bias, tribalism, and distrust, this really matters. So that's my second point. Your emphasis on faith and belief should dovetail with your larger business priorities and even your priorities for the larger world. You noticed in each of those statements by TI and PayPal, they referred to the broader context as well. Point number 3, clearly define your intentions. Advocates should explain why they're enabling religious expression at work. There shouldn't be any hidden motives. In addition to the business cases that I just mentioned briefly, many companies express purposes like these: to support company values like personal integrity, goodwill, psychological and spiritual wellness. And here's one that's common in these groups: to foster bridge building across cultures. Keep in mind, this is not just about making religious people comfortable. It's also about fostering cross-cultural relationships. This bridge building goes far beyond mere tolerance. You know, you can tolerate a bunch of gnats flying around It's a little different. It's a lot different when we have a real embrace of one another, and that's what we're looking to do. It's also important to explain what this focus on faith is not. It's not a Trojan horse designed to enable a particular group to dominate. Wherever that's happened in history, it's been a mess. And we're not pushing employees to say that all beliefs are equal. Diversity isn't about making everybody the same. We've got to create a culture that enables diverse employees to engage, to learn deeply about one another, and to remain true to their core beliefs, to disagree when they must, to disagree civilly. So that's my third point. Define your intentions. Clearly state why you're doing this. We now come to number 4, and that's focus on the grassroots. Often when a workplace discussion of spiritual identity starts with informal, unofficial grassroots events that emerge spontaneously from your employees. Now, some of you are sitting there and saying, I don't think there's any grassroots interest in faith expression at my company, but I would caution you, often the silence is caused by worry that people would frown on any discussion of faith at work. You'll probably be surprised to learn that behind the scenes, religious and spiritual skunk works are already underway in your companies. My point is, it's far better to have this going on out in the open than to have it take place in the shadows as if it's something to be ashamed of. When we say that grassroots is important, don't misunderstand me. There's certainly a lot that top management can do to nurture this movement toward authenticity. Business leaders and faith leaders can officially encourage people to engage openly with anyone who is interested to learn about their core identity and beliefs. That's great. But my point is that the enduring and most impactful work of building trust and civility takes place outside the C-suite, in thousands upon thousands of personal interactions, characterized by a humble desire to learn about one another's ultimate why. The grassroots is where the transformative change happens day by day. So get in touch with it. I move to point number 5, and that's this. Persuade your leaders. Don't force it. It's often counterproductive to try to force leaders to permit religious expression by citing the minimum legal requirements of reasonable accommodation for religion, or by threatening disciplinary actions. So my point was, compulsion can lead some managers to check the box by doing the bare minimum to meet the requirement. But it's far better and far more effective when leaders are persuaded of the business benefits of religious expression and genuinely endorse it. So how do you do this? How do you persuade these leaders? Our advice to you from the Religious Freedom Business Foundation is to use real-life personal examples, like firsthand accounts of bridge building and what that's meant to coworkers at your company or elsewhere. Personal experiences are transformative. Seeing people's lives transformed by this movement is why I have devoted my life after TI to this cause. I've seen Jews and Muslims, Christians, Baha'i, Sikhs, Buddhists, Hindus, and atheists eagerly learning about one another's core principles and beliefs and becoming fast friends. Between LGBTQ people and advocates of traditional faiths, I've seen walls of distrust and fear dissolved by deep respect, kindness, and warmth. You know, there's a public example of friendships across sectarian lines that struck me recently, and I'm sure you can relate to, and that's the example of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia, who had radically different views of the law and different philosophies in a lot of respects, and religion, differences in religion, and yet were close friends and built a relationship of trust and warmth with one another. Don't we crave that in our workplaces? So persuade with real life examples. Don't force. Point number 6, document a vision of what it would look like day by day to openly encourage employees to integrate their spirituality into their work. include some specific proposals, not just generalities, because people get nervous when you're just talking in generalities. Here are some that are taking place now in many companies. And I'm getting these examples from a group of Christian ERGs that gather on a monthly basis to share their experiences, and the leaders of these CERGs get together. It's really exciting. Let me know if you're interested. We'd be glad to include you. One example is joint outreach activities among diverse faith-oriented ERGs to the community, like tutoring, food for the poor, outreach in times of crisis. So you put Muslims and Jews and Christians and Buddhists and atheists together, and they go on these projects together. It's galvanizing. Another thing that we've seen frequently is a unified multi-faith voice, supporting the rights of those who are underappreciated, regardless of their religion or belief system, or their race, or their status, or their sexual orientation, or spot on the org chart. Another is educational programs, spotlighting relevant faith doctrines. Now think about this, it's really interesting. There are lots of faith doctrines in the major religions across the earth that are shared by many established faith. For instance, views of integrity, ethics, truth-telling, forgiveness, compassion. One faith-oriented group focuses on what they call integriosity, which is blending both integrity and generosity. Love it. The golden rule is embraced by all major religions, that concept of the golden rule, treating others as you would wish to be treated. Principles of humility and openness to listen to constructive criticism, especially from people who are not like us. You can see a terrific example of how religious doctrines relate to work in the materials created by the Productive Muslim Company. Go Google that and find what they're saying. Fascinating stuff, and very much on point. There are many other examples. Then there's holiday observances, for instance, and you should not trivialize this. No, Hanukkah is not the Jewish equivalent of Christmas. There's a rationale behind it, and giving people a platform to explain the reason behind the season is a good way to help people connect with one another. These are just a couple of examples. Begin to assemble a vision of your own and have it include some specifics so people will understand what you're getting at. Point number 7, define reasonable processes. First, before officially embracing religion as part of your company's diversity focus, follow a defined initial decision-making process to help management weigh the issues and make appropriate plans. Among other things, look specifically for leaders who might be apprehensive about religious expression. Don't bypass them. Don't think that you can bring allies together and then kind of spring it on the naysayers later. That's a bad plan. And it's contrary to the whole transparency ethos that we're talking about. Seek them out. Help them build relationships with people who have the other point of view. Now, a lot of people have had bad experiences with so-called organized religion. They've been hurt. They felt put down and condemned. And it's crucial to listen to them and to be careful not to offend. This vetting process is crucial. It is not necessarily easy. Among other benefits, it serves as a demonstration of the need for a focus on religious diversity. You begin to see the barriers that were there that you may not have even realized, the presumptions that come into play when people learn that a person is a particular faith, and the worries that they have about that. It also serves as a demonstration of the feasibility of building bridges. When people of different beliefs and perspectives come out the other side in unison with a proposal, that is transformative. And then there are processes governing internal communications. Now, you need to carefully craft internal communications about this idea, especially when announcing a new policy or approach or a diversity emphasis on religion. Don't just announce that your company is launching a new faith-friendly program. That can be easily misinterpreted. So engage your communication experts and provide for another process that's very important. Provide for ongoing executive sponsorship and guidance. Now, this is not to police and restrict and tamp down communications about faith, not at all. Executive sponsorship reinforces the fact that this is an important strategic business effort for the good of the company. So those are just some of the ideas that we have for defining your process. We move to next to the last point, and that's number 8. Help people of various faiths equip their own constituents to interact well when they're communicating about spiritual matters at work. Don't impose thought police, but help them coach their own, leveraging their own religious principles. Among other things, encourage them to be careful about religious jargon that's confusing to others. Make sure they understand that people outside of their faith will be listening to what they do. In fact, urge them to communicate completely out in the open. Secrecy can lead to unwarranted suspicions about ulterior motives of these secret religious groups gathering. Let me give you an example, and that is at Texas Instruments, we had for several years, still have, Christian business mentoring. So overtly Christian, citing scriptures that are Christian scriptures, but it's open to all. All of the activities of our diversity initiatives are open to everybody. We had several people of other faiths join in those courses and those classes and that mentoring activities. And to a person, everyone came out the other side saying, well, I don't agree with the theology, but this is good stuff. This is really to be promoted and positive. So that builds bridges as well. Urge them to communicate out in the open. So that's the point of helping groups equip their own constituents. We come finally to the last of 9 points. Thanks for bearing with me. And that's this. Right from the start, seek expert advice. Don't try to do this on your own. Look to companies and experts who have done this well. The Religious Freedom and Business Foundation has collected voices from across corporate America, voices of people who bring their own perspectives on things. Our essayists, many of them are from C-suite executives, describe why this is important. The book title is The Faith and Business Movement, 10 Principles Defining Its Success in Corporate America. Now, there are lots of personal stories here written by the people who experienced them. The principles include a lot of the ideas we've discussed and more. For instance, we drill down deeper into why it's good for business and provide data to support that. We talk about chaplains at over 1,000 US companies, talk about why it's good for health, as science shows, and the fact that this is not going to go away. Religion has been around forever, and it's going to be with people from cradle to grave. And that's the 9th point. Those are the 9 points that I have for you now. I will turn it over to Paul Lambert to provide some more information about the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation, how they can help with number 9. And thanks for the time. Paul?
Great, thank you, Kent. What a wonderful presentation of these 9 points. The Religious Freedom and Business Foundation stands ready to help out on that 9th point. We want to help. We want to be part of the process that you're going through. Again, invite everyone to join us on December 3rd, where we will continue this conversation, including these points that Kent has talked about. Again, December 3rd, 1 p.m. Eastern. Look for some information from the foundation coming out on how you can register. And again, thank you for everyone's participation today. This has been a great conversation. Again, we thank Kent, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you going forward. Thanks, everybody.